Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to say that I have another young Indian with us, part of the Voice of the Young series. Right now, we have with us Tarang Tripathi. So let's listen to him. Over to you, Tarang.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much for your patience with everything. I'm very honored to have this opportunity to speak to you. As I said, like I have spent a lot of time going through your different talks and also your work as someone who works with economists. Also, your work has been something that I have engaged with quite a lot. As I was thinking about what I should talk to you and just talk about, I understand, like I was going through the issue of there are so many different things that I do, and I landed on one thing which I think is something that I want to talk about. But before that, just to tell you a little bit about my story and tell you about why there was a confusion as to what I should talk about, is because I resonate deeply with there's this animal called like a chameleon. I resonate with that animal a lot because I do multiple things and I wear multiple hats in my life. I am currently a doctoral candidate at the University of California in San Diego in the Department of Education. I also work as an associate instructor here at the Climate Education Department in one of the colleges at UCSD. I also run an organization called Aawaaz. So I'm a co-founder of Aawaaz Education Services in India. So trying to work around these three different roles, which are all connected, has been something that has put me in different places. So I see myself as a teacher in some places. I see myself as a researcher because that's a part of my job. I see myself as someone who's running an organization. So it has led me to a place where I'm doing multiple things. And this idea of thinking about why and what I should talk about was also really helpful because something that's at the center of whatever I've done and whatever I want to do is that I am deeply passionate about understanding and figuring out what is an ideal space or what creates an ideal space for students and teachers to learn. And that is the desire to find this space is something that has led me over the last decade and a half to work in this space. When I started Avaz 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, it came out of a Teach for India project as I was a Teach for India fellow at that time, thinking about I had the privilege to have access to debating, to have public speaking as an opportunity, and I had access to a lot of these opportunities growing up and also in college. So I was thinking about how do I create this space and create this learning space for all students and create this space for my students back in Delhi where I was teaching. And that led to the creation of Avaz. And since then, everything that I've done in education, as a practitioner, as a researcher, has driven me to center teachers and has centered these spaces. And in doing so, one of the things that, as I try to keep centering teachers and teacher voices, one of the things that has become extremely undeniably present in every part of education and teaching over the last at least few years, and something that I have also had to wrestle with, and that's why my research is also moving that way, is technology in classrooms. So, looking at education and teachers, my research looked into teacher agency and specifically using teacher agency to understand what supports and what inhibits teachers as they work with diverse classrooms, specifically in India. And more specifically, my dissertation, my research was and continues to look at like private schools in India and private schools in Delhi, especially under the Right to Education Act, Section 12, looking at EWS reservations and what it does to teachers, what it does to classrooms, what happens when the entire dynamic of a classroom is changed. So I was trying to center the teachers and rather blame teachers, understand it from teachers' perspective. As I've been doing that over the last decade, over the last 3, 4 years, with the emergence of technology and with the emergence of artificial intelligence, it has become really important and it's become really crucial to try to understand what is education and technology and what is tech in education. I think it sounds pedantic, the difference between ed tech and tech in ed, but there is a huge difference about who you end up centering. So what I wanted to talk about today was to think about education technology and technology in education. So before starting off, before going into whether it's good, bad, I think there is an information challenge that we have, which is simultaneously there are people with so much information, including me, that it becomes a whiplash, that it becomes almost overwhelming to try to keep track of every single thing that's happening in the field of education and technology to come up with all to understand all the different developments. it just becomes too difficult. Even as someone who's doing research in that field, it becomes overwhelming. It becomes something that almost pushes you back into a corner where you don't want to know more about it because you're just being bombarded by so many different things. And on the other hand, we also have a lack of information. And going into, and I'll talk about this, about how digital literacy is something that's really important in all of this like spectrum of having way too much information or having no information. We are also falling into the trap, and something that I have been trying to look at is how there is this it's becoming more and more difficult to try to distinguish between what is actual development in technology in classroom and what is just hype, because every single week something new comes up. Every single week there is something that is something that's is going to revolutionize education, change, teaching, change, education as we know it. It becomes really difficult to keep following it and keep understanding what is happening. But I think one of the things, and that is the problem that I have been working and wrestling with, and I want to talk about, is that there seems to be this implicit or explicit, in some cases, tendency of education and technology, or the way that we think about it, especially with the emergence of artificial intelligence, to almost bypass teachers, which is, it's not about supporting teachers, it's about how do we support the students without the teachers. And that's why we're seeing a lot of these issues, and we're seeing a lot of these issues and pushbacks and friction between teachers, education, and technology in
Mm.
classrooms. So, what I wanted to talk about, and just to break it down, was I wanted to talk about certain issues that are happening or certain challenges that I have perceived. So, three levels. So, certain challenges that I have perceived from education and technology, what is happening, contextualize it to India and the work that the space that we work in. And third, then talk about some of the things that like my organization, Aawaaz, and I have been trying to think about and work towards. So, starting with the first one, I think just understanding some of these issues, understanding the issues of education and technology, or the way that we are thinking about it now. One of the best examples that I read by multiple authors, and I'll talk about them in a little bit, is that one really good example of figuring out where things are going wrong is that if we just take lesson planning, or we just think about lesson planning, something so fundamental to teaching, something so fundamental to classroom exercises. With Gemini coming out with their version of like education in classrooms a few weeks ago, they had like 20 shiny buttons of like you can press everything and you will get everything that you can possibly imagine and want as a teacher in a second. But fundamentally, the mistake was, or that I believe that was a mistake, was that it was changing something that is a verb, which is lesson planning, into a noun, which is just an outcome. So it's completely drawing away any sort of cognition, any sort of work that teachers have to do, any sort of
Mm.
engagement with teachers by providing them the solution. Like this is the band-aid. And that is something that that is something that has been playing on my mind over and over again. And if you think about a lot of critiques and a lot of like conversations about this, it has been about how we are thinking about teachers as passive consumers of technology, as opposed to active users of technology who should also shape and have an active role in understanding and shaping the technology in the way that it is. When we take this and then we pull it back to India and we think about context in India. So I work with a spectrum of schools, working all the way from unrecognized schools in Sangam Vihars to one of the most elite schools in India. They also work with us. And looking at this spectrum, it has made me fearful of what is happening, because the tech divide, that's when the internet came in and everything, that made a huge tech gap and huge literacy gap in the country. I fear that if we don't think about this explicitly and we don't think about this right now very cognizantly of what do we do with this tech divide, this gap is just going to keep increasing. And that brings me to the fear, and that is what has led me to think about all of these things, is what happens in a country like India, which has millions and millions of teachers who are managing classrooms with a lot of students, which are not just teachers. And as a teacher myself, we know that teaching is one part of your job. And being in the classroom is one part. There are so many different things that you have to do simultaneously. In an already challenging, resource constrained environment, what happens when a bulk of teachers and a bulk of students just get left behind again? And Of course, there are infrastructural challenges, there are challenges of AI literacy, there are challenges of trying to reach out to these teachers and reach out to these students. But if we don't think about them, and if we don't, again, fundamentally center teachers and students, and especially teachers and students who are already at the margins, it becomes very easy for us to forget about them and just start thinking about the tech first and the teachers and students as second. And that goes back to the idea of putting technology first, putting pedagogy, putting people second. And it is that I have been, or that we have been trying to work on. And to that end, one of the things that we talked about in our recent paper that we just published was we tried to understand how are teachers actually engaging with AI in their classrooms, specifically in India. So we worked with a few teachers in Delhi to try to identify that. And what was really interesting was from our findings, we found out three things. One, there is a difference between AI use and AI literacy, which is teachers and students are using AI and they're using AI in their day-to-day lives. And I'm talking about like middle and high income private schools. Um, they are using AI, but they are also cognizant about the fact that AI or using AI is not the same as being AI literate. And there are multiple frameworks that we can look at to try to understand. And there is this very dangerous assumption that we might take that the more AI or the more technology that you use, the more literate you are with it. It's not. This requires multiple layers. And if we look past this, or if we ignore this, we again then tend to run the risk of creating teachers and students as passive end products or end users as opposed to active users. The second is this is an age-old saying that teacher education is needed. We need teacher ed. We need to skill them. The way that teacher ed is being thought of right now also is that it's being thought of as let's tell them the different ways in which you can use the different
Mm,
tools. How can you use
mm,
different tools? But that's very different. And teachers are themselves cognizant about it. When they're talking about it, they understand that this goes beyond just a set of tools. This is something that is fundamentally challenging power structures, fundamentally challenging everything that we understood about classrooms.
mm,
Hence, all these support systems, all of these trainings have to go beyond just saying these are six different ways of trying to like use AI. And third is this cognizance, and there seems to be this belief, or there seems to, if you read different people on the internet, they will either try to pull you into a camp that teachers are very excited about AI and they're like, yes, let's do it, or teachers are like, let's burn all of it down or let's put it back into the bottle. What we found was that teachers are actually understandably somewhere in the middle, where they understand that this is something that cannot be put back into the bottle. Like we cannot go back to putting our heads like go full ostrich. But they're also cognizant about the fact that the way that it exists right now is not good. And we can just look at it. And I'm not going to talk about all the different ways in it's taking away teacher agency, it's taking away student agency. We had that MIT study, which I still don't completely agree with the idea of what it does to like the way that students engage with AI and what it does to their cognition. But all of these things to say that it's really important to center teachers and center students when we are thinking about this. The final thing that I'll say about point two, which is India, before moving on to and the Indian context, before moving on to what we are trying to think about, is that something that I mentioned, equity is a huge part of it, which is we have to think about the tech divide that already exists. There are multiple things. For example, internet has become much more accessible in India. This creates an opportunity for us to do something, an opportunity for us to create a version where technology is reaching all the classrooms. But if we don't actively center like
mm,
students and teachers at the margins, we're going to forget about them as we start moving from
mm,
the core outwards. To that end, the final thing, which is what are something that I am thinking of, and what is something that Aawaaz and a lot of researchers, and I'm working with economists to try to figure this out, and we are designing our next randomized control trial to try to look at the impact of this. So what we are doing and what we have been trying to build is we have been trying to build this hyper contextualized teaching assistant. What does that mean? So this hyper contextualized teaching assistant is that right now also, even though we have moved beyond one size fits all conversation with AI, we continue to think about personalization happening at the cost of classroom teaching. which is that if you're going to personalize instruction, it happens as one-on-one, and it doesn't happen as one-to-many, which is most of our classrooms. The way that we are building this is that based on our past studies and based on the work that we have done, we have realized that there are few key student metrics and student ideas and student traits that impact student performances in classrooms. And there are key teacher traits that impact their performance in classroom. Now, mixing this with the theoretical idea of distributed cognition, which is that something that Hutchins and the university that I am at, he wrote about in education, is that when we're trying to do complex tasks, it's beneficial to try to reduce the cognitive burden by using technology that helps us think, not replaces our thinking. And that becomes really important in teaching because, so just think about it, which is trying to, one, get information about, assuming you just have 40 students in your classroom, which is, as you can imagine, there are way more also. Trying to the get information about all of these 40 students, about their likes, about their dislikes, about their preferences, about their friends, about their
Mhm.
family, very difficult. But assuming that you manage to collect all of this information, then to store that information in a way that's accessible is challenge number two, very difficult. And then third, which I think is the most challenging, is that then every single time you're designing a lesson plan or you're designing an assignment or you're designing anything for your students, to pull on that information and to pull on that information adequately and usefully while designing all of this is just outside the realms of human cognition. It just becomes too difficult. So rather than replacing teachers, how do we support them in this process where this information becomes accessible to them every single time that they're making a decision?
Mm.
So to that end, that is what we have built. We are still coming up with the name of it, and we are working with Schmidt Sciences as a way to. We got a small Schmidt Sciences exploratory grant to just try to think about what the proposal would look like, and one thing that we have done is we have built it, but something that's central to everything that I've said is we want to try to build it from ground up. What we mean by that is that if I, like I have kept saying that we need to put teachers, we need to put equity at the center of it. We also need to follow up with whatever I've said. So the first school that we have targeted, or the first school that we are working with as co-participants, is an unrecognized school in this area called Sangam Vihar in Delhi, which is the largest unauthorized colony in Asia still. Now, this is the most challenging environment that we could find, and we have been working with that school for different things. But we spoke to the owner slash principal to try to see would he be interested in this idea of trying to build this like a teaching assistant for all of their teachers. And we have started that. So we have started collecting data and we have started building this app for them because we know that when we build from the lowest common denominator up, which is that if it works for like schools in Sangam Vihar, then it will work for everyone else. But most importantly, what we are building should not look fundamentally different for a school in Sangam Vihar versus an elite school in Delhi. Because
Mm.
if it does that, then all we are doing is again exacerbating that inequity.
Mm.
So, as someone who has one leg in research and one leg in practice through Aawaaz, the way that we are doing this is working with researchers. So, I have been a part of, I've had the privilege and also I've had to learn how
Mm.
to think like an economist and think with economists in
Mm.
certain ways. So,
Mm.
we have been working with researchers and educational researchers, especially around inclusive
Mm.
education,
Mm.
along with them and along with practice to try to build this intervention. Finally, so after these 3 points, the only thing that as an educator and as a teacher-centered researcher
Mm.
that I have to say that I think this is the tipping point in education, or this is the tipping point in our classrooms where things are not going to go back to the way that they were.
Mm.
I They might become good, they might become bad. I am fully in the camp, and I'm fully in the camp of understanding where we go. I am not an AI enthusiast in the way that this is the best thing that has ever come up,
Mm.
nor am I a doomsayer that this is the worst thing that has come up. I know that the determining of whether it becomes good or bad is dependent on how much we actually critically
Mm.
engage with this technology. And for
Mm.
a country like India, and for a country like with the number of students and teachers that we have, this
Mm.
becomes imperative. And that's what we're trying to build. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to me. And
Well, it's fascinating, and I was tempted to butt in every now and then,
absolutely.
but I've learned to keep my mouth shut while others are speaking. So I'm glad that you're tackling these very tough issues. Um, I did have the AI is a huge change. Okay, I'm glad I'm not teaching. Because
I
I don't know how I would cope with it, but let me tell you, I first started teaching in the US and back. I also taught in India 72, 73, and it was old fashioned. Okay, in the university, I was not a school teacher. University, old fashioned, face to face, front, teacher knows everything, students know nothing. In the 1980s in Washington, D.C., it was still the same.
Mm,
Because there's nothing. The students could only get knowledge from the professor. The
yeah.
professor knew what articles to look at, what books to read, and so on. I quit teaching 1988 and went back to university in 2005. That's almost 18 years. Now, the internet was there and the students had at least laptops in the classroom they could have. Actually, the universities were all connected and you could have. So now the knowledge was not with the teacher anymore. The knowledge was Google was just, I mean, the old search engines were there. Google was just starting as such. But before that, there were many search engines like Yahoo was the most famous. So, you could just ask the students. Hey, can you look up the date on this, or can you look up this data? And then you didn't have to remember. So your own pressure to know was reduced.
Yeah.
And then I taught for a couple of years, and then I went back in 2014. By then, the smartphone was there, the laptops were there, and all. So obviously things changed. It was not the same change as AI. Completely agree. On a
Mm,
scale of 1 to 10, AI is 10. That change was perhaps 2 or 3.
mm,
Okay, it wasn't that earthquake like,
mm.
because the only thing available was information, and even today, AI is far from perfect.
Oh, absolutely.
Even the knowledge, I mean, even today I found out, oh my God, this thing is dead wrong.
It is. It is. Yeah.
No, so what I'm saying is this, and the solutions, yes, many people are using it for solutions, and in India the college students are using it outside the classroom
Yes.
to make decisions.
Yes.
I hear from young people, so at least I'm informed of what's happening over there. And you have to teach in this context.
Absolutely.
This is so I'm saying it's a very difficult thing. But I hear still from people who are fully into, I also hear from people who have no clue even what to do with a smartphone except Instagram and porn. But uh, the ability for the teacher to still inspire the students remains so far.
Absolutely.
It remains. So I think that is something that you have to think from, you are thinking with a lot of information and lot of data and all that. But I would say that if you can think from first principles,
Yeah.
that what inspires students, because you want actually in the modern times, you don't want to give them information,
Yeah.
you want to inspire them. And
I,
the second thing is that when people ask me that what
mhm.
is the point of college,
Yeah.
I said the point is you have to learn on your own. That's where you go to college. You learn from your friends, you learn from your various other things. So learning is no longer only teacher classroom centric. So I think we have to accept that learning it was there in our times also. In my times as an undergraduate, there was no teaching. There was not, just courses were so easy. It was a joke. So we wasted all our lives. So we learned things from each other. Like people picked up this, the habit, that hobby, this thing, that thing. I mean, classroom was like, okay, you go if you want to, but if don't you have something better to do?
Yeah.
So, like I never went to stats, but
Yeah.
I topped the university. So what? In
No.
stats, okay? So big deal. So the classroom. But what I'm saying today, I think the biggest challenge is that India is hyper competitive.
It is.
Right? And so, how do we get students to learn is no longer just the issue.
Yeah.
How do we get students to retain their mental health, which is becoming a big issue, which came as a big shock to me.
Hmm.
Because in my times, mental health, nobody knew what it was.
Yeah.
All were crazily wasting their time, except one or two fellows who would study. The rest were just wasting their time. Okay. And that was so. I think you have to learn, you have to figure out how you can use AI
Mm.
to inspire students,
Yeah.
how to get them to learn on their own,
Yeah.
and how to handle the competitive pressure. These are the more fundamental things that I hear. I don't hear it, but what my conclusions are, I've now talked to more than 700, heard more than 750 young people
Yeah.
who are in the elite kind of thing. I've also talked to a lot of people who are not in that elite mode, and they are clueless.
Yeah.
They're
Intermediate.
clueless on what to do with the smartphone. Okay, so that's the second job with that. Once you go down below that, how to get them to use it even. So I think it's a big challenge, and I'm glad that you are uh, putting your mind to it. I want to hear more about Aawaaz, but just as the last thought, I would say think from first principles. Think
Mm.
from first principles.
Yes. I,
Okay, because
yeah.
in or sorting all this out, what you hinted at this, what are the teacher traits
Yes.
that work?
Yes.
But you have to flip it on the other side also. What triggers things? As you know, there are different styles of learning that people
Yes.
have. Okay, my daughter and I, we didn't believe in going to class. I said, what the hell you're going to school for? When she was young, she would be late every day. And I said, what are you wasting your time going to school for what?
Yeah.
And she would agree, but finally in seventh grade, she put her foot down and said, look, I'm going to do my homework. I said, why are you doing your homework? I'll just write you a note. You're not well. What's going on? Just learn on your own. What's the point of all this? But my son, he was different. He didn't want to learn from anything.
But so, mm,
But
it,
one day he decided when he went to college, okay, I'm going to learn.
mm,
And his style was to learn from teachers.
yes.
So I think that diversity you have to keep in mind, that not only
Absolutely.
what are the teacher traits, but what are the traits of the young people. And I know you're doing it, but I think it's very important.
Yes. So I was taking notes, sir. I have three things to say.
Yeah,
This is really helpful. So well, the first thing that I wanted to say, or the first thing that I had a note about was there is this person called Tarun Cherukuri, who is my city head in Teach for India, and then runs Indus, Indus, like that's the organization that he runs. Um, when I was talking to him about this, and then he said that again, first principle, and he was saying that you know what, you need to make teaching fun again. You
yeah,
need to make teachers like what they're doing, and that is the thing. I think that AI works, sir, when it is not when teachers can do what they were already doing but faster.
yeah.
They can do something that they could not have done and find
Correct.
beauty of teaching, which is
Totally,
exactly what you were saying.
totally,
And
totally, totally, This is my point of this Vidped channel, that it could not be possible without the digital technologies. Okay,
absolutely.
and by the way, let me give you the example, okay, of this 1935. R.C. Boral in Kolkata invented playback singing by
Hmm.
separating the video file from the audio file.
Yes,
That
yes.
was real digitalization. The
Hmm.
nowhere in the world was there playback singing, and he created it in India by asking this question: why does KL Sehgal have to sing and act at the same time?
We can talk about Anand also,
Huh?
right?
So the technology. So I think you have to use technology in this way, that you
Yes,
have to do what I say is what was not possible in the physical, but is
exactly.
possible in the digital.
And that is my point, sir. Like, for example, your son. Like,
Uh,
imagine if a teacher knew that, okay, he actually likes learning from me. And imagine if they knew that their daughter, she doesn't like school that much, she likes something else. Holding on to that information and using that information to create curiosity and create that space where they feel like, you know what, this is really nice. I want
Yeah.
to.
Okay, good. So anyway, let me stop talking. Let you talk. Tell
No,
us about Aawaaz. Tell us
oh
about.
yes. So Aawaaz, sir. So just pulling it back. So the all of this, everything that I do and everything that I have done is a product of Aawaaz in the way that it has been my first job after Teach for India, and it's been the thing that I have been growing. I'm very lucky to have this co-founder called Chandra Aditya, who's managing this from India, while I shuttle between the US and India as much as possible. But Aawaaz started off with this very basic idea, which was students have agency and students have their own abilities. What we need is to provide them the platform
Mm-hmm,
to, to showcase that.
mm-hmm,
And that platform did not exist. So when we started with Teach for India schools and then government schools, we realized that it's not that these students don't have the capacity. It's just that we need to make sure that we're creating the space again, that learning environment for them to like and want to do this. How do we create a space where they feel like this is not classroom work, or even if it's classroom work, it's exciting? That's where it started. We started with 5 schools, MCD schools under Teach for India. Then we went to 50 schools. Then we went to 100 schools. We
mm,
expanded out of Delhi. And then simultaneously, sir, something that I still struggle with is, and we still struggle with, is we are trying to figure out how to balance the not-for-profit and for-profit part of it. Because we keep doing this with working with government schools, working with public schools, working with schools in Sangam Vihar. But somewhere through this, we realized also that this is not a problem that is necessarily just limited to government schools or to public schools. But even other schools are still trying to support their students and create these learning spaces. So Avaz started off as a place to try to create these student-centered, activity-based learning spaces
mm.
so that students can learn and enjoy learning and
Okay.
push beyond just academic skills. So go beyond that a little bit into, I hate using this term because it's one of the most ambiguous terms, 21st century skills that has come up over the last decade. We started before this type came in, but just the ability to think critically has never been more important than right now. It has just become a mismatch of that.
Let
That's not.
me give you an example of the
Yeah.
opposite of 21st century skills.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. How did the British train the people who were going to become civil servants and run the empire?
How?
How? They taught them Latin.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They taught them Latin. So
Yeah.
what you teach is kind of this obsession with 21st century skills is completely, I mean, the job is 21st century,
Yes.
but the skills, and there's one particular thing, there was a general who was in
Yeah.
India and he wanted to go and capture Sindh.
Yes.
Okay, but the authorities in England were saying, no, 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 don't, it's too risky, too dangerous. Okay, fine. Anyway, he went ahead and he took Sindh.
Yeah.
Okay, those days they could send telegrams.
Yeah.
Okay, so he sent a one-word telegram. That was a Latin word. He punned. He wrote peccavi, Peccavi. In Latin, it means I have sinned.
Yeah. Okay.
This is what they taught those people, Latin.
Yeah.
Right?
Good.
So don't tell me that this is 21st century skills. They are not 21st. Skills are the same. The applications
Yes.
are different.
Yes. And I think the reason that it's called 21st century skills is because, as you said, these skills are something that are age old. It is this realization that these skills are as important, if not in some cases slightly more important than academic skills that have led to the term 21st century
Okay.
skills.
All right. But anyway, I'm so glad you told me about Avaz and that it's 10 years old and really very interesting work that you are doing. What do you think is the future of all this? If you had to guess.
Yeah. The future of like all the work that Avaz is doing.
Yeah.
And
What you are doing or what Avaz is doing, what do you
yeah.
think is the future?
I think so. So I am finishing my PhD and coming back home. Home, is still India.
Yeah.
Because I think the future of this is that I want to make sure that the student, because I feel privileged with the opportunities that I have. And I think I'm a product of not my biology or the nature nurture argument, but it is the opportunity that I was given. I think that technology, opportunities, economic development, all of this leads to the creation of these spaces that will allow the next generation, will allow the students to develop. And it's absolutely vital that we do that. I think the future to this is the success of creating those spaces, which is where we can draw on every single resource that we have like
mm,
available to us,
mm,
including technology. We
mm,
use all of this not as the end goal. So technology is not the end goal. The end goal is that space. The end
mm,
goal is the creation of that space where all students and teachers and feel that they have the opportunity to succeed. They have the opportunity to get all of these skills in whatever way works for them. And yeah, that is the end goal, sir. So I envision that every single student will, regardless of where they come from, have access to that learning space, and whatever it takes to create
mm,
that learning space
mm.
needs to be done.
Okay, let me just tell you what I have observed from
Yes.
the elite educated young people. Many of them find the college courses not challenging enough. Though they
Mm,
say they are hard enough, hard courses, this and that and all, but they obviously don't find them challenging enough.
mm,
As taught in the so when actually you're talking about teachers, actually you're talking about teachers in the educational system,
I am.
and they are structured in the system. So no matter what the teachers do, they can only do so much for the students. Okay. And
Hmm.
now, so for example, there's a young woman in Delhi. She's told me she got into biology, she's doing biology, but she says, sir, on the side, I'm doing another bachelor's in psychology from the Open University. I say, are you mad? But and then maybe she'll do some internships and so on. So then I heard that from another person in Madras Christian College that, oh, I'm doing this economics here, but I'm doing data science from IIT Madras online. So,
Mm,
and then the internships and all these things, they are still driving these highly educated people.
yes.
I'm very clear what I'm talking about. They are
Yeah.
not the average persons in India.
Yeah.
They are the educated people, and they may have come from poor backgrounds, but they are in elite colleges.
Hmm.
Then they are picking up from very much from outside the classroom. So, what I am observing from the young people is that learning is from in I don't know, I don't talk to high school students 11th and 12th, but in college and above there's quite a bit of learning from outside the classroom, and
That's
that is a reaction to the fact that all colleges have to aim at just
mm,
plus my at the average plus minus 10 student. You are a teacher, you aim at the middle. You can't teach the top, you can't teach the bottom. You have to
yeah.
aim at the plus minus 10% of the average student.
Mm,
And because the Delhi University is going to take the exam, it's the same exam in all the colleges. You can't help, you have to ensure that the average student passes. And that means the top students like me just waste our lives because there's
mm,
nothing to study. So in this environment, which is not going to go away in India, right? How do you provide even
yes.
the highly educated people
Yes.
with options outside the classroom? I think is another key topic, I would say.
Absolutely, sir. We are
Okay, how do you provide them the options to pick up things? So it's not saying that I have to make the teachers more effective. Problem is that you're stuck with the bloody syllabus,
syllabus. Yep.
right? Not and the exam, which is the same.
Hmm.
So you can't teach beyond the exam. So how do you decide
Hmm.
that you can enhance? After all, your country is going to be run heavily by these people.
Absolutely.
So why are you? What is AI doing for them? That is a question I'll leave you with.
Perfect, sir. I really like that question. So I'm going to divide my answer into in classroom versus outside classroom. So I'll
So in
first talk.
classroom, you forget you are an expert. You are you can. I want to hear outside.
I will quickly tell you something about inside classroom, then
Hmm,
move to outside classroom.
hmm.
So inside classroom, I think, sir, what you're getting at pedagogically is the issue of rigor levels, which is that when rigor levels become too easy for the top of the curve, then it's pointless. And to counter this, the pedagogical technique of differentiation, which exists, which is that you try to create a classroom where every single student is met where they
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
is beautiful, romanticized idea, exceptionally difficult to do. It is so difficult to implement, it's almost mythical.
Yeah.
However, that's where technology and AI comes in, which is the ability to create some of those spaces. So I think from a rigor level, I hope in an ideal case, going back to what I was saying, in an ideal case scenario, tech is pushing us to like the best case of when we know the tech has worked is not when we can do what we were already doing faster, but we can do something which we have struggled to do, which is differentiation, so that these students don't feel like it's so easy that I'm actually not learning anything. So that's the in classroom thing. And I think the technology responds to that. Uh, Outside classrooms are really important. And I think we're working with a few economists from University of Chicago right now with Aawaaz and our research part of it to try to see the impact that internships have and that in-school internships have on students. I think in that way, one, I'm not going to disagree. I agree that regardless of the fact that even if we have differentiation in the classroom to an extent where you, your son, your daughter, me, whoever they were, who don't feel bored by what is being taught, the two students that you spoke about, they all feel like it's valuable. I think it still has a place. I think life skills, again, another which has become a buzzword, life skills that are learned from being in the market or in actual internships is something that can't be replaced. I think what AI or what technology can do is A, bridge this distance between I want to do this, where do I go and do this, or what opportunities exist to do that. I think it can support that. And second, for the student itself, the understanding of what is it that I want to explore. What is it that I want to do? So you said one of the people that you were talking to is doing a very interesting like psychology course on the side of economics, right? That decision is also explicit and like there's some thinking behind it. So I think technology can help there, but at no point am I denying that even if classrooms become optimal, which I hope that they do, or become close to optimal, I think outside classroom remains like it becomes really important. And then technology plays a role in reducing this gap and also increasing like information as to
Mm.
what do you think, where would I fit in the best? I like A, B, C, D.
Mm.
Where do I think I fit in?
Yeah.
So that is my response to that question.
Okay, it's very good, Tarang. I'm really happy that you are grappling with these issues. They are real issues, and all the older people don't really have a clue.
And
I mean, I'm saying that I'm glad I'm not a college professor now because it
I
would
teach students
be,
right now.
huh?
I teach my students right now, and they're like masters and undergrad, like final year students
Yeah,
at UC San Diego, and they're like, and we have this constant conversation in the department about how do we deal with everything that's happening.
yeah.
Really.
So I'm glad I'm out of that. But the older generation really is not going to be able to help you because they are stuck in the past. Okay. Most of them, by the time they reach senior citizen status, they are fossilized. They just cannot think from first principles anymore, and they cannot therefore, and also they don't understand everything that is going on in the digital land. They're
Yeah.
not comfortable with it, and you know, it's just useless. Okay, but the young people
Yeah.
are totally into it,
Hmm.
and if you can figure out a way to
Yeah.
make them more skilled and more productive and more able to make the right decisions for themselves, life skills, and for the country, then I think that will be very, very helpful.
I have a question for you, sir, if that's
Yeah,
all, if it
yeah,
doesn't
please. Yeah,
system. Sorry, first of all, the thumbs up came because of Zoom's like method.
whatever. Yeah, okay, ignore
Uh,
it.
my question to you, sir, was that because technology is also going to have an impact on what you called the older generation, and they also have to wrestle with it in some way. Like they might not have to wrestle with it like firsthand, but their sons, daughters, granddaughters, like children or people that they know might. Do you think that there is still scope to get them to understand and work with this technology, or is it like just
I
like
think there is scope for a minority.
okay?
Okay. There is the majority. If you have to be age specific, after 65, you're not going to get the majority
Hmm.
in
Okay.
India. You're not
Okay.
going to get them
Hmm.
because they are already successful in their own ways. They are all happy with their own ways. and
Mm,
nothing gets through. Okay, nothing gets through with the majority,
mm,
overwhelming majority.
mm.
But if they are 50 to 65, then they are thinking about how to deal with it, how to make good use of it,
Mm.
how to get into it. I mean, the other day I had a Vidped with a fellow who runs a company, small company in Nagpur, and I just told him that I'll send you the AI summary of the Zoom meeting, of our Zoom discussion, and it's very good. And he said, "Sir, can I do it with my own meetings when we have?" I said, "Yes, it's very good. We'll do that now." I
Yeah.
said, "You just record the audio and submit the audio file, and you'll get a summary." So he says, "Good. There's no need for a note taker." So there are, people are still active, and they're very keen to get on top of it. And you see some retired army types, retired IAS officers, they're very much into it.
Yes.
So you can get them, some of them,
Mm.
but not the majority, I think.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, they are, they don't have the faintest, and they're so busy with what they are doing. Partly, it's not that they're wasting their time. They're so busy with what they're doing, they
Mm.
don't have the time to pick up,
Mm.
and they don't have the time and energy to pick up, and they are comfortable in what they are doing, and people don't ask them to do it. So where is the incentive?
Yeah. No,
There's no incentive as such. You just continue in the same path, and occasionally, I mean, you take your iPad with you and stuff like that, and you get used to that, and you get used to just the hardware side of it,
yeah.
and you get used to voice dictation and so on. But I think to think in along those lines, that's not what's happening. Hardware adaptation, software adaptation, that is there, but thinking, no.
That's it. That yeah. That makes. I'm still thinking about that because I think a unique subset of this conversation then becomes school leaders, because a lot of school leaders, even in India and across the world, even here, are fit into that category of 60 plus. They're running massive universities, massive schools. So they would become that subset that because they have to directly engage with technology. They don't have a choice.
No, that like the dean of a law school asked
Yeah.
me that, Subodh, what will you do? How will you handle this? I said, I don't know. Thank God I'm not teaching. So, well, they have to know. They have to know. They have to deal with it, and they are thinking about that. So I think that is any practical solution is very worthwhile. Okay, but my view is very straightforward. There's no such thing as modern day skills. The skills are the same. It's their application that is different.
Yeah. And
And to
exactly.
learn there is a, what should I say? There is a skill which is in your mind, and then there's the application of that skill to a particular subject, which is different.
Yeah.
And for example, when you look at these MBA programs of MIT and Harvard, MIT programs of MBA are highly mathematical.
Mhm.
Harvard's not. And when there was a survey which said that, can you please decide for us, help us, which method do you prefer? They say, we don't care. So long as you teach them, and
Yeah.
so long as they pass your courses,
Yeah.
whatever you teach them is up to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we just need those guys who get into your by fairness, who do the hard problems you throw at them, and then they'll figure out how to solve other tough problems. So kindly don't waste your time asking us this question. And people would say, I studied German and Wall Street's hired me. I know. Honors in major is German, and Wall Street says, who cares? If you
Yeah.
can, if you can do the grammar of German,
Yeah.
those bloody long words, you must be on to something. So I think that part for the
Yeah.
elite, now we're talking for the elite. For the elite, you have to have a different approach.
Yes, yes, agreed.
Totally. You cannot be bogged down by the notion of helping the average.
Yeah,
This is one thing that economists know, the difference between the marginal and the average.
yeah.
So you have to have a strategy for the elite.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the MBA example that also you brought up goes back to my research of social networks. I spoke to a few MBA students, and the most important thing, regardless IIM, Stanford, Harvard, wherever they went, they said coursework was like 5% of what we got. It is all the networking. So most of my teacher education work also looks at social networks and how people's networks impact their behaviors and how
Yeah.
they add value to it. But yeah, for the elite, sir, it's interesting. So you're saying that have like different strategies for the elite and the rest.
Absolute. No, I'm saying that actually you need a strategy for the clueless
Oh
because
yeah,
their
absolutely,
productivity gains will be the highest.
100% agreed.
Yeah. So you need a strategy for the clueless, which is really the sense in India because if you are talking about equity, equality
Yes,
of
yes,
opportunity, then that's where you have to, if you want growth, you aim for
yes.
the elite. If you want equality of opportunity, you go for the near bottom.
And that's where you see
Go
the
for the
change.
near bottom because the productivity gains there will be
Absolutely,
enormous. And
absolutely,
I have seen that myself. Because I don't have time to talk about this now, but at some point when we talk again, we can talk about this. Um, but I am working with, I have worked with students who are nowhere near the top.
mm.
Or let us put it in one short phrase, they are the elite of the marginalized.
Mm-hmm.
They are
Mm-hmm.
the elite of the margin. They are marginalized, but they are the elite of the marginalized. And the productivity gains there are enormous.
Yeah,
Okay. And then just below them, also the gains are there. You look at the second round elite of the marginalized, and there also the gains are enormous. So you have to, but the strategy may have to be different. You have to think it through. I am sort of not that clued, but you do have, because they are so clueless. They're
yes.
so, and the teachers are so clueless.
That's
And the
because of
parents are so clueless
that.
that the
But
productivity gains are enormous. Potential is enormous.
yes.
If you can, but so I'm saying crack the elite and crack the poor.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are planning to crack the elite, which we are also, but I think cracking the marginalized, I think they are where they are because of systemic issues. And
Correct,
and
correct. That's
that's
why I'm calling them
there's
the
so
elite
much,
of the marginalized.
there's so many things that we can do. And yeah, absolutely. Like looking at it at two different like, bottlenecks.
Okay, it's getting late for me. Let's
Oh,
end it here today.
sorry.
I do want to talk to you some more, but let's do it. I have some concrete things to tell you
Absolutely.
and talk about. Let's do that in 2026. Sometime in January, you give
Absolutely,
me
sir.
a call. I'll be more ready to talk about those things. And
Absolutely.
let's postpone it to then rather than premature at this time. We'll, I might have, have an opportunity for you to do something very important. Okay, so let's
Absolutely.
postpone it till January of next year. And
Absolutely.
sometime in January, please put down on your calendar to contact me.
Absolutely.
And let's end it here today and let's talk just a little bit offline. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So thank you, Tarang. It's been great pleasure. I'll be back with another young person or an expert. Thank you. Bye bye.